you don't want to find out where your holes are when it already happens. You want to know ahead of time, because if you don't do anything and you wait, it's going to be very costly. You have to ask yourself, like, if you get ransomware and your systems are down, you as a business owner that's listening to this, you need to ask yourself, how long can you operate, or how long can you stay solvent? How long can your business stick around if no money's coming in? If you're shut down, if OCR comes in and shuts you down pending investigation, how long can your business stay afloat if no money's coming in? You have to think of it that way. Like, if your systems are down encrypted and they want, let's say, 10 Bitcoin, that's going to run you about $600,000 or so for ransom. Can you afford to pay that? But then can you also afford to pay the fines that you're going to get from the government? You're going to get state fines, you're going to get government fines, you're going to get then your insurance. You got breached. Chances are you probably didn't have the tools or the things in place. So now are they going to help pay for it? Probably not, because if you have nothing, so now you're having to pay the criminals X amount of money to get off $600,000, let's say, for example. But then you have all these regulatory fines from the government that are going to come. That's going to add up into the millions probably.
Hello, friend. Welcome. I'm your host, Carlene Cadet Francois from Florida Assisted Living Consulting. We help professionals open successful assisted living businesses throughout the state of Florida. We also host conferences, and we are out there trying to find you the education that will help you succeed in your caregiving journey. Today, I am here with an amazing guest. Carlos Anglero is the founder and CEO of Kevlar IT Solutions, a cybersecurity-driven service provider dedicated to being your digital armor. With a background in law enforcement and system engineering, Carlos delivers a rare blend of real-world protective instincts, technical expertise, a disciplined leader. He specializes in supporting organizations in healthcare, legal, dental, assisted living facilities, financial services, constructions, and other highly regulated industries where security, compliance, and reliability are essential. Carlos, I am so grateful to have you here today. I don't know how many times I come across my client and they have no idea about what cybersecurity is, what they need to do to set in place. And I'm so excited that you took the time to be here with us today to educate my audience. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for having me, Carlene. We met at your conference earlier this year. Been looking forward to this. As Carlene said, I'm Carlos Anglero with Kevlar IT Solutions. We specialize in essentially all things security for your, businesses, whether it be small, medium, or large. We do specialize in those compliant areas, those framework areas. So like your HIPAA, PHI, things of that nature, where extra regulations that are involved with running your business. So that's kind of our bread and butter. That's kind of like where we most comfortable, because that's our background, where we've kind of separate ourselves. Whereas most IT companies fix problems, we try to prevent them. We at Kevlar here, we deliver cybersecurity, first IT management, helping businesses avoid breaches, staying compliant, especially for the ALF sector. That's definitely a huge one. You don't want to OCR anybody coming after you or investigating you. And if you do, you want to have somebody that knows what they're doing to have the right tools and administrative options in place to protect you guys. So that's definitely like our area. And then obviously, we want to reduce as much downtime as possible, hopefully no downtime. So that way you can stay operational and keep the money coming in, but also keep your patients and your employees protected.
I love that. And you and I have a lot in common. We are people who love to serve, and we do it from a heart-centered place. What led you into the IT security world? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I was in law enforcement before this, had experience in law enforcement, got to see different bits of it. So teach at the universities throughout Central Florida, criminal justice courses. So I've always wanted to help. I've always wanted to, look after and protect people. It's just something I've always done. I kind of always found myself going towards those types of jobs. And when I got out of law enforcement, wanted to figure out like what's the next thing, what's the next chapter, what am I going to do? And I reached out to an old sergeant of mine, and I asked him like, hey, trying to figure things out. I was working on my pilot's license to become a commercial pilot and stuff like that. But then the pandemic came, and kind of, that nobody knew what was going to happen during the pandemic or how long it was going to be down or things like that. So the funding for those programs dried up, and so I had to, pivot to the next thing. And, an old sergeant of mine was like, hey, what do you think? And they mentioned, you should probably consider IT. You like to stay learning, and you're always trying to learn new things, and you're never able to, just stay doing one thing. You feel you like to keep doing that. So I took his advice, went to a technical college here in Orlando, and learned from the ground up. And, I did a 18-month program in about 5 months, got that off the ground. That was my into the IT world. I worked for Dell for a little bit, got into the healthcare sector, and that's kind of where I stayed. I've worked at 2 big hospitals here in Central Florida, and currently working with biggest hospital in the country, working there as well. And, I was doing that, and this opportunity of starting my own company and my own business kind of just, somebody mentioned it in passing, and it was something I never thought about, and kept thinking about it. And And here we are 3 years later, going strong and growing and trying to keep doing what we're doing, providing good service and protecting our customers.
I love that so much. I think one thing in leaders who serve, we are avid learners. We never stop learning. Serving is almost like natural gift to us. So learning is the way that we water that gift, and then we can go out there and make huge differences. So I appreciate you coming into the assisted living healthcare sector because they need more people like us. People will go above and beyond to do what is right. And what you do is so well needed. So often I hear horror stories of seniors being scammed, family members being scammed. And this is an individual perspective. But to even think you have an assisted living business with several residents, sometimes hundreds of residents, and then you get hacked. What happened, right? So
Right.
what you do is so important, and I'm grateful that you're here doing it. When somebody hears cybersecurity, for someone who has never heard of someone being hacked, believe it or not, there are some people that are not so tech savvy at all in our industry, healthcare industry. What would you say that you really do on a day to day for assisted living type businesses?
Yes, that's not uncommon. Everybody associates cybersecurity with a few things, whether it be stolen credit cards or, locked computers. Somebody locked my computer and now they want 50 Bitcoin or what have you to unlock it. So that's kind of like the mainstream of where cybersecurity is currently. But in terms of like inside the assisted living space, I would say owners as well as other, small, medium, and even some large-sized ALFs, they view cybersecurity as a luxury item and not as a necessity. Perhaps, 15, 20 years ago, it may have been kind of like a luxury item on a P&L or a budget because cyber criminals weren't as sophisticated as they are today, especially with the use of AI. It's just allowing them to automate things and just attack more numbers, more people, with their emails and stuff like that and their scams. So you need to have somebody that is aware of what's going on and what the attack vectors are and to be able to defend against them. Whereas when it comes to like the assisted living space and patient safety and, things of that nature, you as the owners, whether you're a 1 bed, 2 bed, 5 bed, 50 bed, 100 bed facility or
Mhm.
greater, your digital systems are your care systems. Your medication schedules, your fall risk alerts, your care plans, your emergency contacts, those all live in software somewhere on a computer server somewhere. So when the software goes down or gets compromised, care decisions get made with bad information or no information at all. And then what does that do for you as the business owner, as the entity? It opens you up for lawsuits and fines, regulatory fines, things of that nature. So right now, the biggest thing is, ransomware. And, I would say a ransomware attack in an assisted living facility isn't just an IT problem. It's a care crisis. When your systems go dark, your staff is flying blind and your residents pay the price as a result of it.
Oh my God. Because at the end of the day, if you really let that sink in, it's a real problem. And it's one of those itemized expenses, or what I'd like to call it investment, that you need to have as an assisted living operator, just as well as everything else, like the mortgage and staff. Because could you imagine being faced with something like that? Everyone is affected, your business, quality of life, right? Because your business is how you serve and
Of
also how
course.
you make money.
Hmm.
And then also the family members, their personal information, your staff. It's like your computer is so important to the business, and people don't think about how they are going to protect that.
Yeah, a lot of times it's one of those analogies that people ask, like, well, why is it important? Why do I need it? And kind of the best analogy I have, there's a few that I have. One that kind of fits well. Nobody thinks about the smoke detector until the kitchen is on fire. And with cybersecurity is your smoke detector. And right now, a lot of ALFs don't even have one. That's kind of a way to look at it, is when you're kind of thinking about cybersecurity, like that's how important it is, and if you don't have it in place when you do need it, it's already too late. I mean, you're in trouble at that point.
That's like life insurance, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You don't have it by the time you need it, it's already too late,
Yep.
and no one really is going to want to take you. In a case like that, of course, I'm sure you would take the client, but it would have been so much easier for you to serve them at a higher level if they came in way before they
Oh,
needed whatever they need.
absolutely, absolutely, because a lot of people can understand it from this perspective, especially us coming from law enforcement. If you're in a car accident, before you get into into a car accident, you're paying your deductible and your premiums are are a certain amount because you haven't had any accidents. What happens when you have an accident and you're found at fault? That premium is going to go up, is going to skyrocket because that insurance company is going to be like, okay, you're no longer in their eyes, quote unquote, safe. So now we're going to charge you more to cover you for insurance. It's the same thing with cybersecurity. The best time to get things going and getting the tools in place and having the policies created and set up properly is before, because when the event happens and you're already behind the eight ball and you're stuck and you're now reacting as opposed to being proactive, now you're reacting to what's going on. Someone else is dictating what's happening to the business. You're no longer in charge. Now that threat actor is in charge. So things are going to have to happen very fast, but it comes at a cost. It's
Mm-hmm.
cheaper if you're able to do it ahead of time. But if you're having to do it like all right now, we got ransomware, we need to rebuild all our servers, we need to get all these policies, we need to do all these things. You're going to have investigators coming from OCR. They're going to be looking at what's going on. Depending on how bad it is, you might even have law enforcement involved. Then you're going to have attorneys and all these other things getting in place. Things are going to have to move very fast. And the money you think you're saving because you don't want to pay for it ahead of time and be prepared is going to cost you quadruple, 10,
Or if more,
15,
probably even
yeah,
more.
10, 15 times even more than if you would have did it before. And we're talking, best case scenario. A worst case scenario, you're losing your business, you're closing down, people are losing their jobs, your patients are going to have to go elsewhere, and you're going to be on the hook for however millions of dollars in fines, plus whatever damages civil attorneys are going to come after you. So it's definitely cost effective to plan and prepare ahead of time than once it already happened. Because like in the car accident analogy, once you're in that car accident, your insurance is going to go up. It's going to be harder for you
Mm-hmm.
to do that. Cyber liability insurance, all businesses should be carrying it by now. A lot of insurance brokers, a lot of insurance companies are making it mandatory because cybercrime is such an issue that keeps rising and it's just becoming an everyday thing. So now it's becoming more prevalent where you need to get it, and to have the insurance company pay out on that issue or on that incident. If you don't have the right tools and the right documentation in place, you just paid years of premium insurance, and now when it comes time for them to help you on that car accident, just like in the car accident, they're not going to pay because you didn't have this, you didn't have that in place, and therefore you just donated all that money to them and you're going to still have to pay more money. So it's a very tough time to be a business owner having to deal with all these things, and that's kind of where we come in. We take on that portion of the compliance portion for you, that compliance journey, because that's what it is, a journey, and we assist with that to make sure that you have what you need in place to protect yourself. Should worst case scenario happen, we're already there, we have what we need. We can rock and roll and get you back onto your feet a lot faster.
I love that. When a client come to you, what does that look like? So if I'm watching right now and I'm thinking, yeah, I do need to get that, what does your onboarding process look like?
It always starts with an initial phone call. You can either go onto our website and schedule a call that way, or you can just call directly. But we have a scheduling option. And the onboarding, it always starts off with just an initial consultation where we have a discussion on what is it you're looking for. We try to get an understanding of exactly what it is that you have going on. Because although a lot of the environments, a lot of the setups are very similar, there's still different things that we need to be able to figure out and iron out and verify that this is how it is and this is what works. And in doing that, we might be able to find some inefficiencies, or you might discover that you might have some firewalls misconfigured, or you might have no firewalls. That's kind of where that comes in. So we have an initial consultation. Then if it's something where the owner of the ALF or the customer feels that, okay, this is interesting, let's go further, then we'll do like a technical assessment where we come in. Now we'll start asking those deeper questions like how many users, where does your data live, is it encrypted, not encrypted. Those are all things that we start building our strategy to best protect you. And once we get all that going, we come up with a plan. We sit down, we discuss the plan, what it's going to take to implement, roll out whatever security you're lacking, or you might have something, but it might not be configured, or you might have something and it's done right. That's an easy check off, but that's kind of where the assessment comes in. It's kind of like a physical. Think of like going to your doctor for your annual physical. That's essentially what we do in terms of technology. We do the technical assessment. We look at the information. We look at the data. We'll run some tools just to make sure and do some analysis on your network and make sure that you have certain security settings set. If not, then again, that'll go on our list. And so once we have that big picture of how we can better protect you and how we can benefit you, then we'll sit down and we'll have that discussion on, okay, here's the plan, here's our roadmap, here's what we have planned out in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, and a year to get you compliant, to get you on that road to be better secured and better prepared. We have that discussion, and then if it's something that the customer is comfortable with and they see the value in what we bring and they trust us, then we're in business together. We sign the contract and we hit the ground running and we start getting your ALF, your facility secured as quick as possible. Everything starts with the technical assessment. And like I said, that's like going to the doctor for your annual physical. The doctor's not going to come and start prescribing medication without knowing what's going on with everything else. So it's the same thing with us. We need to see what's going on, big picture. And then once we're in there, we can start looking at different things, just like doctors do with blood tests, x-rays, all that stuff. It's no different.
I love that. In ALF settings, we need to have a lot of maintenance. We have to have liability insurance, maintenance for the generators, and all of these things. So IT falls right into that. So if you want to protect your information, your client's information, that's when Carlos comes in. And you kind of mentioned a couple of pitfalls that you've seen healthcare settings ALF may have gone into indirectly, but is there any that stood out to you?
Compliance is always the biggest thing, is always the biggest one, because a lot of people think that compliance is just a checkbox. Okay, so I have multi-factor authentication, I have a firewall, I have encryption or what have you, and they think that that's it. We're done. We're done. We're now compliant because I have all these things they say I need. And one thing that a lot of people overlook when it comes to compliance is it's not there's two aspects to it. You have the technical aspect, but then you have the administrative aspect. The technical is kind of where we come in. We make sure that you have the proper tools in place, the proper alarms, settings, things of that nature to make sure that when it comes to the actual technical aspect, make sure your computers are set up the way they should be. Make sure that your email accounts are set up how they should be. Make sure that your website is protected properly. That's another thing. A lot of businesses don't realize that you need to protect your website, your domain. So those are all things that need to be considered. So one of the biggest pitfalls when it comes to compliance is there's the technical aspect, but then there's the administrative. So the technical, you're going to make sure your computer's set up properly, make sure your email set up properly, make sure you have antivirus, make sure you have all these tools in place. That's your technical aspect. We assist with that. But something else we assist with is guiding you in terms of your administrative. This is where I would say more than 90% of businesses, when it comes to like a cyber attack or an intrusion or something, where something happens where it's either ransomware, business email compromise, or something happens, a cyber criminal comes in and does something to your business, and you have this insurance that you've been paying for, and when you make the claim, it gets denied because although you have the security stuff in place, and you as a business owner, well, I have a firewall, I have a security guy, they do all of this, I pay every month for the security. Why is my claim being denied? And the biggest pitfall I would say when it comes to compliance is the businesses think that, like I said, it's just a checkbox. There's an administrative portion to the compliance, and the administrative portion is that does the company have the proper policies? Are they actually doing what they're saying that they have in writing? So if are you actually verifying that no one's sharing emails? Are you verifying that your backups are tested regularly? Are you verifying that you have an acceptable use policy? Those are all things that business has to do. So that's where we kind of separate ourselves from everybody else, where since this is our area, compliance is kind of our bread and butter. This is kind of where we make our money. We can assist that business. We can assist that HR person or that owner to become compliant with the policies. We can help build and create the policies for your business. We can help make sure that it's compliant with the standards for HIPAA. And then we can help do all those things walking hand in hand with you. And then we can take that burden off of you. You would still have to make sure that your employees are signing off and keeping track of that, which will assist with that as well. But there's a little bit more than I'll just pay for this and that's it, I'm covered. No, there's an administrative portion of it. It kind of goes like with the HR function. It goes very similar to that. They're almost parallel with like, what an HR function would be for an entity or a facility or ALF. So that's kind of how that works. And that's the biggest pitfall, because a lot of business owners, when they get compromised, well, I've been paying for this, why am I getting denied? And then they find out that, well, yes, the insurance company is usually the one that breaks the news. Like, yes, you do have this in place. We do see this. We do see that. However, show us this policy, show us that policy. And when you don't have those policies, or they're not up to date, or the last time that they were reviewed was 2 years ago or never, then that is what the insurance company needs to deny you. And then you can go to attorneys and you can do all that stuff. But in the contract, it says you're going to do certain things. And if you don't do that, your claim is going to get denied. And that's where a lot of businesses find that out the hard way when it's too late.
And the insurance companies, they will try to get you. I had
Yes.
one of one of my lawyers that was talking about how insurance companies, they have different tricks and they will put you through those tricks.
Oh yeah.
So it's amazing to see that it seems like you also educate as you are leading and helping them develop those administrative policies and things that they need to do, as well as making sure their staff are being trained. Do you also help them when it comes to educating their staff about the importance of doing the tasks that are required for them to do?
Absolutely. You have to. You can't claim to be a cybersecurity company and not train the staff. You have to. When it comes to a business, your computers are going to do what you set them up to do. They turn on, they work, they do their thing. A computer, it's going to stick to the rules you give it. But
Mm-hmm.
people, they're the weak link of the chain because it might be a bad day. They might get an email where it's kind of suspicious or it's kind of off. Maybe something doesn't make sense, but they have so much going on. Maybe they're pulling a double shift that day, or maybe their son is sick and they didn't really get to sleep really good. So now they're foggy in their brain or something. So the weak link are the people. So that's why we have to train them. So if you're communicating or you're talking to or you're looking at a cybersecurity company and they're not talking about training your people or getting them squared away in terms of how to be able to see an email and what to do if they see something that's kind of suspicious, run from them because you have to train the people. The employees need to be trained because they're the weak link. Your business email compromise, your phishing attacks, that is exactly the target. That is who they're looking for. Most cyber criminals are not trying to attack computers anymore because it's too hard. You actually have to know what you're doing. So the average cyber criminal doesn't have that experience, that ability to be able to actually physically hack into a computer like in years past. Now it's easier for them to send an email to somebody and get them to click on something. It's much easier and it's less work. Criminals, they want the most bang for their buck. So if they can do something where it's going to create more money but less work, that's what they're going to go for. So right now they know that going after the computers, it's hard because there's AI that's assisting with catching suspicious emails, suspicious attacks, things like that. There's firewalls. There's all these tools that are in place now that make it harder for someone that's not as technical, doesn't have as much technical knowledge to get into a computer where, they need to go for what's easier. The easier target is your people, your employees, hoping that they catch them on the bad day, hoping that the email that I send out today catches that one person that's just off, that's just not really paying attention, or they might be checked out. They might be getting off and they might be starting their vacation and they have a cruise tomorrow that they're ready for. So they might not be completely in the work zone. They're already like, okay, it's 12 o'clock. I got 2 hours left and I start my vacation. So they might not already be fully focused and they open an email, click on a link, and right there, the criminals just got into your network. So people definitely have to be trained and you need to have the tools in place to be able to assist them as well.
I got hacked because of one of my employees. Actually, I was still at the sheriff's office, and that person was managing my Facebook account. And they clicked on something they shouldn't have clicked, and I almost lost everything. And I wasn't even big like that, like we are today. I mean, if this were to happen today, it would be the worst nightmare that I could even think about. And I don't have a large ALF that I'm managing. This is just for the business. And it gets even worse for managing an ALF. And I've also come across family members who are struggling with their mom and dad, who are clicking on things, getting phone calls, and even in assisted living, some of our seniors, they are allowed to use the computer, use their phone. Is there anything that you would say to a family member watching this that they can do to protect their seniors?
First, I'll say that yes, clients that are inside the ALFs, like those are the prime targets. Like they are who criminals want. It's our ALFs, vulnerable. Yes, I would say that they definitely are vulnerable because, you have hospitals, they have dedicated security teams, they have compliance officers, they have $1 million budgets. So they have an army of people ready to defend against these types of things. So hospitals have dedicated security teams, compliance officers, and $1 million budgets. Whereas the ALFs, whether it be a small, medium, or large, your smaller ones might not even have an IT person. It might be just a family member or a friend of the owner that just happens to know how to do some stuff with computers. And so that's the extent of their protection. But the data that the criminals are going for, they're going for medical records. records. Right now, medical records are more valuable than credit card numbers on the dark web.
Wow.
So like your customers, your clients, your patients, those are prime targets because think about it. You have patients that are, elderly. They have, what do they have as elderly? Yes, they have, they get social security, all this other stuff. That's not what they're after. They're after the credit history. You have somebody that's 70, 80, 90, even 100 years old that's still alive. They have credit history that dates back to however many decades. So if you're going to open up a credit card right now because things are automated, these insurance companies, they're going to see like, oh, this person, they've been around this long, their credit history is 30, 40, 50 years old. Oh, yeah, we'll pay them, or we'll give them a credit limit or a credit line, or we'll give them a credit card. Now these criminals have that credit card. They're going to run it up. And then when it gets maxed out, okay, cancel, just leave it alone, open up another one until somebody says something, a banker or family member gets a notice saying something's wrong. And then that's when the family finds out that their family member was taken advantage of. And then now that's a whole big ordeal that they have to deal with. So these are all things that are happening and happen every day to seniors. It is a target rich environment because they're the best victim, because a lot of them are not tech savvy. So it's easier for the criminals to take advantage of them. A lot of them are still, older generations are still used to talking to people on the phone and doing these things. So somebody can get on the phone and take advantage of them if they're a smooth talker, and they're going to believe them because it's just that generation that they still believe in people, they still trust them. So they're going to be taken advantage of. So that's where the family members, that's where the facilities, that's where so many things have to come into place to kind of protect them. And that's why laws are changing, and bankers have to now ask certain specific questions and make sure, and bankers now can say no, well, we're not going to approve this to protect you as the consumer. So like I said, hackers are evolving, and especially with the use of AI, they're able to work faster, get a lot done with less time, because now they can program the AI to help them do whatever it is that they want to do. So they can exploit a lot more people, and all they need is just really one person to say, to click on something, and then they get paid. And that AI, they send out 10,000 emails. If they get one person that clicks on it and they get paid $5,000, that took them maybe 3 minutes of work, but they just got $5,000. So you multiply that by however many emails they get, and it gives you an idea of how lucrative it can be. Not saying that, people should start doing it, but that's the issues. So hackers don't go after the toughest target. They go after the easiest one. And right now, ALFs are the low-hanging fruit. And you have a target-rich environment because you have customers that have what they want, good credit history.
Do you also provide services to family members who are not in ALF settings?
Yeah, we can assist. We can take them on as customers as well. That's not a problem. Kind of an offering that we've been kind of considering within the company, been discussing amongst ourselves. We've been asked it before, is, if family members were interested in kind of the same services. Yeah, it's definitely something that we can do as well.
Yeah, because even my daughter, she's a third grader. She told me some of her classmates looked me up. I don't know. They probably saw one of my advertisements. So almost on a regular basis, my daughter's coming back. Her friends are telling her how they saw me and how they know who her dad is. And so her friends, a couple of 9-year-olds, are able to look me up, probably because they click on one of my advertisement, and now they're able to see a lot of information about my spouse and people within my realm. So I can imagine if it's the same thing, if mom has, a couple of daughters and a couple of sons, uncles, and it's like you target one, and she's old enough to where, she's been living for a while, and now you have the whole family tree. And I can see how even targeting mom who lives at home could be a problem for the whole family.
Yep. And that's exactly what it is. You're going to have some criminals that are just going to scrape the internet for whatever information they get. They're going to have their AI create a bot, create a chat bot, and then tell the AI, create this email for whatever it might be. And then they're just going to send it out, just a blast email to just everybody, anyone and everyone, hoping that a keyword triggers or gets that one person. That's one type of criminal, that's one type. But then there are some criminals that, they know how to research, they know how to use the internet to get information. Your more successful email, your more successful cyber attacks and your more successful breaches are because the offenders did their homework. They went on social media, they went on Facebook, they were on Instagram and Twitter or X or whatever, whatever, and they do their homework on the person or the people or the company. They start looking, oh, this person likes to go here and this person likes to go there. So they'll start creating these files, a case file essentially. It's no different than, and so if you have an ALF or anything, they're gonna follow you. They're gonna try to friend you on Twitter, LinkedIn, what have you. They're gonna start messaging you. They're gonna start doing all these things, and they're using all these tools to get all this information on these people to enhance their chances of getting in. They just need to send you one email one time where it has a malicious file on it. You click on it and that's it. The keys to the kingdom are now theirs. It's that simple. And you're like, your good cyber criminals, they do that. That's exactly, they do their research, they do their homework. The fact that you're saying that, your daughter's classmates are able to use the internet like that, it just shows how we've evolved. The younger generations are more tech savvy and they're going to get better and better. So that's where we are now. And, these are 8-year-olds that are doing now stuff that adults don't know to do. They don't know how to get information on people. They don't know how to look them up, but the little kids do because they're watching YouTube and they're learning how to do all this stuff. So eventually we're going to, get to a point where criminals are just going to get better. Like the IQ of the criminal is going to improve and become better. That's where you need a company like us. That's where you need cybersecurity. That's where you need stuff like that to help protect you because, you're going to have all these different threats coming at you from different ways and you don't know because you're too busy running your business. You're too busy taking care of patients, your clients. You're not going to be on top of what's the latest and greatest technology. How's AI being used to circumvent certain security? Like that's not your job. That's our job. That's where we come in. That's what you're
Mhm.
paying for. You're paying for that expertise.
Love it. And then there's been horror stories where you hear mom is being taken advantage of and she's selling everything and she's ashamed. She doesn't want to say anything. The best I think a family can do if mom is not assisted living is to protect them because it ends up protecting everyone.
Absolutely. Like when I'm certain when you were working patrol, you would get those calls where someone calls 911 and it's, either son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson, some family member saying, "Hey, someone has my father, my father or my mom's or my grandmother or my grandfather's banking account or their banking information or they took out a credit card and now they owe this much money." We've gotten those calls where they call us and we show up and there's not much we can do because it's a different type of crime. You need to get other agencies involved, but it happens all the time. Unfortunately, it's something that happens all the time and it's only increasing. It's not decreasing.
And it's a shame because they get better and better. And yeah, it's a shame. But all we can do is learn what needs to be done, do the required things and get the required services. And is there anything else you want to cover with the audience?
There's so much. There's just so many things, especially in, the ALF sector, making sure that your EHR system and all that stuff is secure, making sure that whether it be a home office or you have an actual facility, an actual building, making sure that you have the proper security in place to protect your assets. There's just so much stuff. The best thing I can say is you don't want to find out where your holes are when it already happens. You want to know ahead of time because if you don't do anything and you wait, it's going to be very costly. You have to ask yourself,
Mhm.
like, if you get ransomware and your systems are down, you as a business owner that's listening to this, you need to ask yourself, how long can you operate or how long can you stay solvent? How long can your business stick around if no money's coming in? If you're shut
Mm.
down, if OCR comes in and shuts you down pending investigation, how long can your business stay afloat if no money's coming in? You have to think of it that way. Like if your systems are down encrypted and they want, let's say 10 Bitcoin, that's going to run you about $600,000 or so for ransom, can you afford to pay that? But then can you also afford to pay the fines that you're going to get from the government? You're going to get state fines, you're going to get government fines, you're going to get then your insurance. You got breached. Chances are you probably didn't have the tools or the things in place. So now are they going to help pay for it? Probably not, because if you have nothing, so now you're having to pay the criminals X amount of money to get out $600,000, let's say, for example. But then you have all these regulatory fines from the government that are going to come. That's going to add up into the millions probably. Do you have $3-4 million that you can put into something like this? Not to mention the civil lawsuits that are going to come. Right now, especially when it comes to like cybersecurity and like law, now you have accident attorneys that there's attorneys that specialize in just accidents. Now there's cyber attorneys that just specialize in cyber issues. And they're going to come after you as well. They're going to come after you civilly because you are responsible for protecting the patient information. It's not just a monetary thing because yes, you're going to have to pay that. You're going to have to pay for monitoring. You're going to have to get like LifeLock or one of these businesses to monitor the credit histories of all of your patients ever that you've ever treated. So if you have 1,000 or you have 100,000 patients, times that however many times patient records you have, times whatever they're charging you. So let's just say you get a bargain of like $3 a user, $3 times 100,000, do the math, it adds up very fast. But then then you have to also ask yourself, what's the cost of reputation, your reputational damage? Because now if I have a parent, if my parents are in an ALF and you got breached, all their information's out there, I can tell you that my family, we're not going to keep them there. We're leaving. And then not only are we
Mm-hmm.
leaving, I'm going to find one of these cyber insurance attorneys to come after you to pay for whatever fees and all that other stuff that's going to come, because now I have to move and find somebody else to, find another place for them to go. That's going to cost money, but there's also damages to my grandparents or my parents. Maybe they're out money. So now I want them to be taken care of. So it's a domino effect. It can get out of hand very fast if you're an owner and you don't have the proper tools in place and you don't have the proper documentation. It can get very expensive very fast, and it's not an experience you want to go through because it is a very painful experience and it is a very embarrassing situation if it does happen, especially if it's something that could have been prevented. Those are just some of the things that I would say as an owner of an ALF you have to, be cognizant and be mindful. It is very important.
I agree. And then as you were talking, I'm thinking about other industries that can benefit from your services: staffing agencies, home health agencies.
Yeah, if you're still on the fence of, oh, it's still a line item, or I'm not big enough, I don't need it. If you have a patient, if you have one customer, one client, and their medical information is on a device, whether it be your cell phone, your computer, anything, and you have access to it, you are now beholden to, anything HIPAA related, OCR, like you are responsible for that. So you have to protect it accordingly. And it doesn't matter, even if you're a staffing agencies as well, because you have these ALFs that hire contractors,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yes.
These contractors are working for that staffing agency. They may be
Mm-hmm.
using a staffing agency device, laptop, computer, phone, what
Mm-hmm.
have you. Now that staffing agency has to also abide by HIPAA just because that contractor that they hired is working for, is falling under HIPAA. So now that staffing agency also has to fall under HIPAA. So they have to meet the same regulatory standards. That's where a lot of people don't realize it. That's where the gap in understanding comes in, and you don't find out until it's too late. And then it becomes a very costly, very expensive lesson to learn. I would say at a minimum, if you're a business owner, if you're an ALF owner, whether it be anything, at a minimum, you should have multi-factor authentication implemented within your organization. And if you have any patient information, data, stuff like that, you should have backups. And with those backups, they should be tested. That is at a minimum of what you should be having in 2026. Now, you should have antivirus, you should have, all these other things. This is in addition to, because a few years ago, multi-factor authentication was, it's a nice to have. Well, now it's a need to have. Same thing
Mm-hmm.
with backups. If you have patient information, they're needed. So on top of antivirus, on top of making sure your computer's up to date with the latest patches, security patches from whether it be Apple or Windows, whatever, multi-factor authentication and backups are now the standard. That is the floor of what you should have, and it should only improve from there. So at a minimum, you should have those things. I'm not saying it's going to prevent you completely from being a target, but it's a added layer of defense to help protect you. That's the minimum to be able to do business in 2026. At a minimum is what you need.
And then I'm thinking about the doctors that comes in, the nurse practitioners. It's like there's so many moving pieces. And I'm even thinking about having policies to where we're asking those professionals, are you protected? Because if you get hacked, I'm in connection with you and
Yeah, absolutely. And again, let's say you're contracting out a physician and that physician, they open an email. I would say that, yeah, physicians usually are some of the best targets to go after, because I don't know if it's because they live in their own world sometimes or what, but they do open up emails randomly. That connection is not there where this can cause problems. They just open it. It's like, oh, okay, what's this? I'm curious. What is this? Oh, click on it, and then, oh, if somebody took my information or somebody locked down my computer, because that person, that physician, is working through you, or you're contracting them to see your patients or what have you. That breach, guess what, chances are, if those people know what they're doing, if those criminals know what they're doing, they can pivot and now come after you and attack your network and go into your network and do that, because there was a gateway. You had a physician that had access into your network. That physician's computer was breached, and now they use that to jump into your network. So it's a domino effect. They take down one person. Look at it this way: your business is your house. That physician has keys to your house because you let them come in and out. Well, if that physician loses his keys or they're stolen, now those criminals have access to your keys into your house, and they can come and go as they please. It's the same exact thing. They're just doing it through the computer. So now they're coming in through your computer, and now they're able to access and encrypt your network. And a lot of times that is exactly what they're doing. They compromise your employees' emails to then pivot and go into your network where the big business is, where the money is, where where the data is. That's how it is. So in 2026, you as an ALF owner, as a business owner, any business owner, it's not a question of whether assisted living facilities are going to be targeted. It's a question whether you will be ready when it happens. The time to prepare is before the attack, not after. And that's the biggest thing. If anybody's listening to this, you need to prepare for it before, not after. It's kind of like here in Florida, we have hurricanes. People go shopping before the hurricane comes, not after. Although, sometimes they do. But if you're Floridian, you understand that analogy.
Yeah,
So that's kind of like where it's at.
I love it. How can they find you?
We have our website. You got www.kevlaritSolutions.com. That's KEVLARIT Solutions.com. You can go there. We have resources, and then you'll see my picture on there, and you'll be able to call and schedule an appointment. There's also a link where you can schedule an assessment, and we can go that route and just kind of see what we can help with.
My God, I learned so much. Even as you were talking, I know for sure what you do is a huge benefit for my client. And this is why we have partnered up with you. You were at the conference, you were one of our partners, and my audience were able to connect with you. And next year, you'll be there as well. And what you do and how you do it is so important. And I value people's time because time is our number one asset. And once we lose it, we lose it. So I only want to bring them information that I know it will solve a pain point that they have. And so I'm very grateful that you took the time to educate us. We'll link your information in the description. Please reach out to Carlos. Let him know what was your big aha takeaway and what you're going to implement. If you can do one thing is to schedule a call, go on his website and figure out how you need to protect yourself so that you can continue to serve without having to worry too much about what's going on with cybersecurity in your business. I'm your host, Carlene Cadet Francois. Until next time, I will see you in the next one. Thank you for spending this time with me. Please consider like, subscribe, and share it with someone that will find it valuable. Until next time, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.